I enjoy trips to the cinema. I sometimes fall asleep, but that's the quality of the film rather than where it's made, and it's the problem with the nature of film writers and editors who don't seem to understand how to do a third act, how to do a first act. I tend to stay awake for the second act, but essentially within each act, you should really be developing these smaller chunks, self-contained chunks, where you set up an aim, you give it a time limit or a goal, you achieve that aim or you don't achieve that aim, and then you go on to the next one, and so on. And it gives us just enough information to get through the next few minutes. I think one of the books, which is one of the series of books which is written like that, is Tintin, and I've always admired it. And Mission Impossible tends to work like that. Sometimes it gets it wrong. James Bond absolutely works like that, and it's beautifully designed. And today's topic really is the blockbuster cinema thing, which meets the broader policy where red carpets clash with red tape, and Donald Trump has proposed a 100% tariff on films produced outside the United States. This move is framed as protecting Hollywood jobs, but it also torpedoes the global ecosystem of filmmaking, and at the heart of the wreckage, a very British casualty of James Bond. And on May the 4th, Trump declared that Hollywood was dying a very fast death because of foreign tax incentives luring productions abroad. And to combat this, he authorized the Department of Commerce to initiate a 100% tariff on any and all movies produced in foreign lands. Now, to be clear, he isn't targeting charming Danish indies or obscure Romanian film noir. He's targeting American financed productions shot elsewhere, primarily in the UK, where tax breaks, world-class crews, and iconic studios like Pinewood and Leavesden have made Britain a global production hub. And the UK film and high-end TV industry generated £5.6 billion last year alone. Studios like Disney, Warner Brothers and Amazon have poured investment into British infrastructure. Jobs, tens of thousands of them, depend on this sector, from electricians to editors, camera operators to caterers. It's like reviving the heyday of the 1970s. Trump's tariffs could render these productions financially impossible, unviable, pushing them back to California, or more cynically, into Atlanta car parks and green-screened nightmares. Shares in Netflix, Disney and Warner Brothers dropped immediately following the announcement. The anxiety is global. A tax this blunt could disrupt not just British industry, but the very architecture of international film production. And now to the man in the black tie, James Bond, the ultimate British export, part MI6, part Martini, and since Amazon's acquisition of MGM, part Bezos. Bond has long called Pinewood Studios home. Of 25 films, 23 were shot there. But now, with Amazon steering the next instalment, producers Amy Pascal and David Heyman face a tariff that could push Bond to Burbank. The irony is really too much. A spy who was who is defined by the MI6 building may soon leap from the roof of Trump Tower instead. Will he swap his Aston Martin for a Mustang, his Savile Row suit for Ralph Lauren? Even Daniel Craig might be forced to raise an eyebrow. Certainly Piers Brosnan. But the sad truth is Bond has already died. At least cinematically, No Time to Die killed him off. Perhaps that was the perfect ending. One final noble sacrifice before 007 becomes a victim of this trade war. Let's not pretend this is about sound policy. Film tariffs are not a logistical and legal quagmire. Services aren't typically subject to tariffs. How do you define a foreign film? If one scene was shot in Wales or a second unit went to Iceland, is that then a foreign film? And don't forget, the US runs a $15 billion trade surplus in film and TV. This is not an industry that's been stolen, it's one that's conquered the world. To claim it's national security threat is absurd. It isn't policy, it's performance, art, it's theatre, and Trump's usual mix of economic populism and cultural nationalism with a dash of xenophobia and stupidity just for seasoning. This matters because culture is not commerce. It's diplomacy. British soft power is Bond. Harry Potter, Paddington Bear, all soft power. These franchises shape how the world sees us. Mary Poppins. Destroy that pipeline, and you don't just hurt the British economy, you sever one of the last remaining threads of goodwill in the Anglo-American relationship. As Dame Caroline Dinenage warned, this is a crisis not just for the arts, but for British influence abroad. And Keir Starmer must navigate this wisely. Cool hand Luke, not raging bull. So maybe Bond's death was timely. Perhaps we should leave him behind that crumbling Italian cliff, unmoved by the tides of tariffs and tweets. But if the next 007 does actually return, let him do so on British soil, not as a refugee from trade wars, but as the best of British ingenuity and global collaboration. Because in cinema, if indeed cinemas are left by the time Trump's stupidity continues and by the time it's taken root around the world, nothing good comes from isolation. Nothing good comes from isolation. Even monks who are isolated are locked into prayer for global security and global health. Trump is self-obsessed, self-centered, and isolationist. And the only thing that I can imagine that he gets up to in that context isn't something that maybe we should talk about on YouTube.